Let's just start with an uncomfortable truth. Silence isn't the absence of communication, it is communication. And honestly, sometimes it's one of the loudest, most painful things you can possibly say to someone. So, we're going to dive deep into this. We're going to unpack exactly why this silent weapon is so powerful. We'll look at what's really happening inside our brains when we use it and what it does to us when we're on the receiving end. I want you to just picture this for a second. You've had a disagreement with someone you really care about, could be a partner or a close friend, and after some time you decide, you know what, I'm going to break the tension. You send a text, and it's not just any text, it's a vulnerable one. You're opening up, trying to explain your side, you're basically offering an olive branch. And then you get nothing. The minutes just stretch and stretch into hours. You keep checking your phone, you see it's been delivered, maybe you even see those two little check marks that say it's been read. And that's when the anxiety really kicks in. Your mind just starts racing, right? You're replaying the whole argument, rereading the text you sent. What does this silence mean? Are they just busy? Or is it something else? Then that gut punch moment of clarity hits you. This isn't just a delay. You are being intentionally ignored. And all of a sudden, your phone, this thing that's supposed to connect us, it just feels like a symbol of rejection. It's like a cold, hard period at the end of a conversation you were desperately trying to keep alive. So, that feeling, that intentional rejection, that brings us to our first big idea here. The silent treatment isn't passive. It's not just someone doing nothing. It is an action. And a lot of the time, it's a really aggressive one. You know, in psychology, there's a name for this. It's called stonewalling. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's the act of building a literal wall between you and the other person. You're refusing to engage, you're shutting down all communication. It's basically a way to end a conversation on your own terms, with zero resolution. In this image of a broken bridge, it's the perfect way to think about it. Stonewalling doesn't just put the connection on pause. It actively demolishes the path back to each other, making it feel almost impossible to find your way back. But that brings up a really important question, right? Why does this hurt so bad? I mean, why can silence feel so much worse than a loud, angry, screaming fight? Well, the answer isn't just in our feelings. It's actually in our biology. And this gets us to our second key insight. That feeling of being left on red connects to this deep, primal fear that is hardwired directly into our DNA. Okay, get ready for this, because it's one of the most wild facts in social neuroscience. Brain scans show that social rejection, so being ignored, being excluded, it lights up the exact same regions of the brain as physical pain. Just let that sink in for a second. As far as your brain is concerned, a broken heart and a broken arm, it's all just pain. And there's a really good evolutionary reason for this. I mean, think about it. For our ancient ancestors, being part of a tribe was everything. It was survival. Getting ostracized, getting ignored, that meant you were left to face predators all alone. It was basically a death sentence. And that ancient alarm bell, it still goes off in our modern brains today when we feel excluded. It feels like a threat to our very existence. So, okay, we get why it hurts so much to be on the receiving end. But what about the person giving the silent treatment? What's going on in their head? Well, this leads us to the illusion of control. For the person who's using silence, it's often a desperate grab for control. When they feel totally overwhelmed, flooded with emotion, or maybe they feel like they can't win an argument with words, they fall back on the one thing they can control, their attention. By withholding access, withholding affection, they get to dictate the entire emotional climate of the relationship. And look, the reasons for this can be pretty complex. For some people, it's a deep-seated fear of any kind of conflict. For others, they just don't have the emotional vocabulary to explain how they're feeling. A lot of the time, it's a behavior they learned in childhood from watching their own parents. And yes, sometimes it is used to punish the other person, to make them hurt without having to actually take responsibility for causing that pain. So it's often a sign of their own emotional struggle. All right, so we've talked about the weapon, the biological pain, the need for control, but what is the silent treatment really all about? This is where everything we've talked about comes together. That fight you had about who was supposed to do the dishes, or that comment someone made at a party, that's just the stage. It is almost never what the real conflict is about. It's a decoy. And here it is, this is the aha moment. The silent treatment isn't a conversation about an issue. It is a battle over existence itself inside that relationship. The person on the receiving end is basically screaming, "Don't erase me. Acknowledge that I am here, that I matter to you." And the person giving it, they're often saying, "I feel so invisible that the only power I have left is to make you disappear." It's this deep, primal fight just to feel seen. So, with all that in mind, how do we move forward? How do we break this deafening silence and actually get back to real communication? Well, first, we have to accept a fundamental truth. Time and silence do not heal these kinds of wounds. Silence starves a relationship of trust, of intimacy, of safety. It takes away the very oxygen it needs to breathe. It doesn't fix the problem, it just slowly kills the connection. And this brings us right here. In every conflict, in every single moment of pain or misunderstanding, we find ourselves standing in a hallway just like this one. A hallway that's lined with choices. Now, the easy choice is often that closed door. It's the path of silence, of withdrawal, of control. But there's another door. It's the one that's a lot harder to open. It's that illuminated path of conversation. And yeah, it's messy, it's difficult, and it's vulnerable. So the question that this leaves us with is, which door are you going to choose to open next time you find yourself standing in that hallway?